All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the review show, the Sunday review here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. If you're just joining us, do us a favor on the way in, hammer the like button, hit the subscribe. More on that in a minute. Giving away some money this week. It's a big week ahead. I'm excited for. Got my guy Tyler here with me from Line Star. As always, Nades running just a little bit behind, but he should hop on with us here sooner than later. Before I bring in Tyler, I want to remind everyone very quickly, this show is brought to you and presented by Line Star app. You can go to linestarapp.com, use promo code SHIPIT to get in on the action. And we might have the move here. Let's see. Boom. Just like that. Look at Nade. Sneaky, sneaky. Tyler, I'll bring you in first. Nade's got a fresh cut. He can wait for just 1 second. But Tyler, what's going on, man? How was your Sunday?
Sunday was good, man. I just cannot believe how quick football season's going. Already through week 10 pretty much into week 11. It's wild. But yeah, it was a good Sunday. Didn't make all the money, but we're back for another week here.
Yeah, it's gonna be another one. Like you said, it's week 10. We're heading into week 11, but we got to finish off. As we always say, we're not done yet. How did you do so far? We're going to find out. Monday Night Football still going to be on. We'll be on the Mayo Media Network later on at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hoop coming off the big day. Title, myself breaking that game down. But Nades, the chat's talking to you, man. Looking sharp. Sean Sullivan Jr., what's up, man? How are you?
Good. We're good. Yeah, I got a fresh cut. Had a good weekend. Not a good weekend in the NFL streets, but hey, the week's not over. So week 10 still going on tonight. We got a great game tonight. Obviously, Denver, Buffalo. You guys are going to break it down. Interesting there, but was on some of the right plays. Just didn't have it all together. Obviously, once we review some of these lineups, it looks pretty easy, pretty straightforward after the sense, but obviously didn't have that puzzle piece cover, right? Like you say, Tambo. So I didn't put the puzzle together correctly, but many members did. Hoop had a great day as always. I mean, Hoop continues to absolutely print in these streets right now. Amazing to see, and amazing to see other members go along with them. So overall, it's been good.
That's always the nice part. Eric says it. Awesome core report. We'll show that off in a second. I like Sean Rooney, too. Really optimistic. You can tell it was a great week. Today's show, chalk smashed. Have a good day. Thanks for watching. Yeah, pretty close. Shout out to our guy, Tweezy. Already mentioned Sean. Ross had another solid NFL week at SHIPIT Nation in the books. Absolutely. Appreciate everybody joining us now. Want to remind everyone very quickly about this. We'll start it off. Let me get this up and rolling for you. We'll get this out of the way early, but King of the Beach. This week, excited. A lot of members will be joining me there. Definitely excited to meet some people that I haven't met before and just talking to in the Discord every day. But part of that is I said and pledged from the beginning that I would be giving away 10% of whatever I win. So far, $6,000, we'll call it, rounded it up. So I'm going to be giving away at least 6 winners of $100. But the goal is to win it all, add that first place trophy to my second and third from King of the Beach, and try and win the $300K. And then give away 6 prizes of $5,000. That would be the most exciting. Happy to do it. Let's get it done. But first, how you get in the draw. If you are not a member right now, that's okay. You can do this one for free. You go to YouTube. You type in SHIPIT in the search box. You go here. It's at SHIPIT Nation. Just subscribe to the channel. And then the way we know you subscribed is you go into this video. It's under videos. SHIPIT Nation member wins $1 million. We interviewed D-Dry, our guy Dalton. It's a good watch, too. You can put it on 2X, watch it in less than 15 minutes. But you go in there and you comment. I'll show you here some of the newest ones. I'll just pause this out so we can do it. But 273 comments. The draw's not that crazy if you're involved. Lots of good stuff in here. People wishing me the best of luck. But just in general, all you got to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go in, leave a comment on this video, and you're good to go. You're in the draw for up to $5,000, depending on how things go. And now let me go back. I apologize, guys. I meant to just click it back over to where we're going next. Talking about that perfect lineup, but got a lot of things right. Got a few things wrong, and that's what hurts you. But I think yesterday was a good puzzle to take apart here that we'll go back and figure it out. We've got the front cover of the box now. We can take it all apart. And then, yeah, my guy Kevlar in the chat telling me he's going to be all in on Josh Allen, and then tells me Josh Allen's going to be low owned at captain tonight. Can't be the same. Can't be the same. Everyone's playing that guy, man. Don't worry. We'll get to that later today, though. Tyler, got the perfect lineup here, man. Going to blow it up. This one spent all the salary, $50K this week, 295.56. It had the stack. It had a couple things that make, I think a few things that make a lot of sense, actually. And then from there, we can talk it out. But no Cincinnati guys ended up making it in. So we'll talk. It was definitely an interesting slate yesterday. The late news, I'm sure you saw it. Ed, whoever his name was, Ed whatever, he's taking heat because he said TJ Hawkinson would only be involved in key plays. Apparently, every single play in the first half is a key play. It was like 10 catches for 128 and a touchdown early on, and then kept it going from there. So talk to me about this one, Tyler. We got Dak, CD, Cooks, bunch of other guys in there, double Houston. What do you see with this lineup?
Yeah, and to talk about the Hawkinson, it's just wild how good Dobbs been playing, how quickly he's got that whole entire offense down. And, it's been fun to see that. But this lineup, it's a pretty standard one from what we see for the perfect lineup a lot. If you look at kind of the review part of our perfect lineup thing, what we see a lot is a quarterback and pass catcher stack with a secondary stack. And in this case, we had a running back and wide receiver from Houston. So, solid lineup all together. I like what I see here. And it's one that we could have made, which is nice. It's not often that we see these perfect lineups where we could actually make it. And this one, you totally could have.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that too. I'll get Nades' thoughts on it first. But just like you said, there is ways to flip this. I mean, when Mayo and I did the Friday show, we liked the Browns. That was sort of our favorite mid-tier D. If you weren't playing Lamar and you weren't going to be on him anyway, you may as well just play the D against him. You were only getting a discount because it was a matchup with the Ravens, who had been hot until yesterday when they lost. So it's like, okay, they're obviously a really good defense. It's just a discounted price. So on and so forth. Keep it going from there. We'll look at the rest as we break it down and see some of the other stuff that lines up. But Nades, just first thoughts on this lineup. And then anything about the slate yesterday. The chat talked about, Pollard. The chat talked about, Mixon earlier. Like, obviously some of these guys failed in what were pretty good spots on paper going in, but some of this stuff makes sense when you run it back. I'll talk about my thoughts after. Give me your first thoughts.
Yeah, my first thoughts are if you look at the slate yesterday, right, you look at the builds, everyone was paying up at running backs, right? You had the Pollards, you had the Bijan at 6K. Everyone was paying up above those, the Mixons. You look at this build and you look at a lot of the winning builds. What did they do? They flipped the script. They paid up at wide receiver. Yeah, they threw a value receiver in there, grabbed the value tight ends, and played the value running backs. Devin Singletary, flop leg, that you talked about. I know you brought that up. Everyone was on Devin Singletary last week in the good matchup. He's still still sub 5K, getting a ton of work there. So he made sense as a flop leg there. Seattle isn't amazing against the run. They're kind of middle of the pack. Brian Robinson getting a ton of work there. He's still reasonably priced at 5,400. And everyone thought Bijan, right? Well, why not Brian Robinson, right? A little bit there too. But overall, the first thing that stuck out to me was the roster construction flip, right? Where grabbing the value running backs in good carry spots, carry snap percentages, decent matchups, and then paying up for alpha wide receivers in good spots, in good game environments, right? Like the Keenan Allen, the CD Lamb, those things. So that's the first thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, I was just trying to look it up too. And this is our guy Joe's going to keep getting zingers. Enough chalk Singletary, the 7% owned Singletary? I don't think so. Not chalk at all. And I wanted to talk about that one. That's where I was going to start off, was flipping the build. Everybody's on the side with Mixon. Mixon was, by the way, the real chalk, I believe. If you go back here, Mixon was 30% owned. So the opposite side of him at 7%. You play the flop leg from last week where, again, this is the thing. Pierce was actually still out. Like, it wasn't like the spot changed. So it just, the matchup changed and everyone was on the Cincy side. So Singletary actually made a lot of sense from that perspective. Noah Brown talked about this plenty all week. A lot of people kept saying, Robert Woods is back though. Robert Woods is back though. I mean, you got a lot more targets vacated from Nico Collins being out than worrying about if Robert Woods is coming back, a guy that can never actually get there. And you get a pass if it is sarcasm, but I thought you were going to say, because the week before he was chalk, and that's where I was going with it. Definitely saw some flop leg. Nades already took my joke. The B. Robinson that actually got there was not Bijan, it was Brian. So one of those things. Tyler and I were talking pre-show about this similar situation to almost how the Bears do it. What we talked about last week, where if you get a spot that, they're going to be in the game and they're involved, it's usually Brian Robinson. And if you get a spot where they're going to be way down in the game, then it is a lot of Gibson checkdowns and things like that. You see this with a lot of teams now. You kind of peg it beforehand. So like Nate said, pay down at the running back position. Keenan Allen will come up later when we get to the $20 Millie Maker winner. Royal Payne, by the way, is an absolutely extremely sharp player who does well in pretty much all formats. And he got the job done this week, had to sweat it at the end, but congrats to him. We'll talk about that lineup later, but Keenan Allen was a guy you couldn't get to. Like, it really was hard. You looked at builds. Mayo and I did it on Friday with Goff builds. No way we were finding a way to get him in there. We were looking at Guyton for cheap or something along those lines if we had to, and who was fine. He got in the box, but just to say, it was like Keenan Allen, you just knew was a hard guy to fit, but he was priced up for a reason, and sure enough, 43.5 says it all. The stack here allowed you to get it. I talked a lot. I was definitely wrong on my 2v2 swap yesterday. It wasn't as good as last week's with the Ramondre Noah Brown. It did not work out. But I did talk about the 2 tight end sets, and they appeared in both Millie Maker winning lineups. You saw 2 tight ends in the lineup, not in the perfect lineup here, but we'll talk about it after. When you got a guy like Hawkinson who does what he does, the Browns just made sense for the spot. Dallas was good. All this overall, to me, a pretty solid build. And you saw a lot of builds yesterday do Mixon Boyd or Mixon Irwin. And like Nate said, it was just on the other side. Singletary, Brown, and then it gave you money to do other stuff like this. Obviously, Brandon Cooks, huge game. Tyler, anything else here on this one? If not, we can go over to the winning lineup in the $20, which was Royal Payne 21.
Yeah, let's look at some real lineups here.
Yeah, let's see what he had here. So I'll make sure we can get it up on the screen for you guys. So this was Royal Payne's winning lineup. It was 260.06. We saw previously it was 295 to get the optimal. So you're not always going to get that. This is a nice way to win $1 million. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Keenan Allen. So there's 4 of the same. Hawkinson is 5 of the same. And then where it got a little bit different was White, Najee, who our guy Hoop loved, who we'll talk about that in a second. And then McBride with the Arizona D. Nades, I'll kick it to you first. I thought this was extremely sharp. You didn't need a bring back. We talked about this on the shows yesterday and throughout the content with Dallas. There was just no need to try and figure out which guy it was. And then I talked a lot about this, and it showed up in this one. Obviously, you need Hawkinson to get the job done, but I said McBride at 3,500 is no such thing as a free square, but I said this is going to be making it very easy for the 2 tight end lineups to get there because he's 3,500 with a real role and gets Kyler back, and sure enough, 24 DraftKings points. So give me your thoughts on the winning lineup.
Yeah, number one, Cowboys onslaught, right? Still an underpriced Dak, and everyone was like, oh my God, the Cowboys, they're massive favorites, right? Dak's not going to get there. Well, it's not going to – you brought it up too, right? Pollard's not going to touch the ball every single time and score every touchdown, right? And they're still – the Cowboys have gotten there the last how many weeks, right, where they're scoring defensive touchdowns, and Dak is still putting up numbers. Lamb's still putting up numbers. So the Cowboys onslaught there. Not only that, it leverages the Tony Pollard ownership because you're double stacking Dak Prescott on the same offense with no Tony Pollard. So I really like that 3-man stack there. You're still grabbing a piece. You're grabbing the best piece of that high total, right, in the afternoon and saying, all right, I'm not playing the Ecklers. I'm not playing the Herbert stacks, the Goff stacks, the Amon-Ra St. Brown, which Amon-Ra St. Brown did obviously still get there. But grab my Keenan Allen, right? The target monster there. He's dealing with guys like Jalen Guyton, right? Quentin Johnston that people are trying to make work, right? Johnston still got in the box, but Keenan Allen still the alpha there. So grabbing him. The Najee Harris hoop can take his victory lap there, but for 4,900 for whether you want to say it or not, he is still the number 1 running back there in Pittsburgh, whether you agree or not, him or Warren, all that stuff. But it's still against a very porous, terrible. My Packers are just horrendous at stopping the run. Najee Harris at home in a game where we expect to slug. You expect Pittsburgh to run the ball, not throw a ton with Pickett, right? In home, and he's sub 5K. So not only that, it flips the build, right? Rachaad White continues to get there each and every week, even against a tough team like Tennessee, because he's so involved in the pass game. So Rachaad White, great play there. Obviously, everyone knows that. And I used the Arizona defense quite a bit because I was not on the Bijan ownership. Bijan was one of the guys that I was under on. He had an okay day, but he definitely didn't get you there if you did play them. So I was like, okay, I really like Trey McBride. I really like James Conner. Obviously, James Conner didn't get there. So a lot of my lineups had either James Conner, Arizona defense, or Trey McBride in the flex with Arizona defense like this. Obviously, I didn't have the other pieces of the puzzle to get me all the way to the top there. But I really like that because it's a double leverage situation. You're already off the Bijan ownership. Well, if Bijan's not going to get there, what are they doing? That means Arizona or Atlanta's probably passing the ball more. That leads to more opportunities for Arizona defense, and they're $2,500, right? Where you want to pay up for guys like CeeDee Lamb, right? Keenan Allen, all those guys, Hawkinson, things like that. So overall, amazing build, super sharp. The Trey McBride, TJ Hawkinson, I mean, you can argue that's two wide receiver ones, right, in their respective offenses for 5K and 3,500 in the spots that they're in, right? No Justin Jefferson, Hawkinson, wide receiver number one. And Trey McBride is a complete stud. Yeah, Hollywood Brown, you get all that. But Hollywood Brown's coming with a ton of ownership. McBride has shown the last how many weeks that, hey, he's basically a wide receiver one for this offense. They're using him a ton. Now he gets Kyler back, a much better quarterback there. So you get two wide receiver ones for the price of basically one, 8,500, right? I mean, that's cheaper than Keenan Allen.
Yeah, same price, CeeDee Lamb, exactly. Good point out there. And then the other thing too is like, even though like people see this ownership, again, not who you play, it's how you play him. Again, if you're using Trey McBride at 20%, a lot of people use him for good reason. But if you're using him to boost up and get Allen at 8% and Lamb at 8,500 with the rest of these guys that you feel pretty good about, that's the way you want to be using him. He was still way in under the cap for ownership, only 102 total. You see all these guys under 10%, under 2%, under 7%, like just all these options. Using Arizona when you're not using Bijan, everybody was using Bijan, Pollard, Mixon, CMC if they were going up. Like there was all those spots. Didn't have a running back over 5,800 and only used two. So use that money to get multiple pay up wide receivers. Extremely sharp lineup. Overall, the build was solid. And then you noted it too. The other thing was not just no Justin Jefferson. I know the report came out and that's what scares people away and all that. And I get it. But like, man, no KJ Osborne either was the news that came out too. So you already had no Jefferson, then no Osborne. You got a guy like Dobbs who's been getting after it with the tight ends. Like he was just throwing it to McBride a bunch and those guys over there, Ertz and McBride. So then he comes over to these guys. I think it was definitely something you could see. It was in our stack rankings. I'll show those in a little bit here. But yeah, just overall solid build. What do you see with it here, Tyler? Anything I'm missing?
Yeah. And McBride actually had the chance to just absolutely demolish this slate. He got most of his points all in the first half. So had he had another big half, he would have just absolutely crushed this slate. But the thing that was interesting to me is Arizona was a team that had a lot of value on it, and you could easily fit multiple positions or multiple players in there. But it's not likely that team was going to score, a ton of points. So I liked only going with McBride here and then throwing in Cooks as another real cheap spot to then be able to pay up for multiple studs. But yeah, I mean, Royal Payne is a good player, sharp player. Not surprised he built a sharp lineup.
Yeah, Kevin, this is wrong. We're looking at Royal Payne. That's Short Gamer TV. He's down here. Follow the industry. We know what's going on, man. And it doesn't matter. Like you can't just say all Sims so it won, then sign up for Sims packages if you think that that's what wins it automatically for you. Hoop wasn't using no Sims yesterday and had himself a good day. Our members aren't using Sims right now that are winning and having success with it. So it doesn't really matter about that. You can't just blame it on something else. That's what being part of this community is all about. You know this though, just saying, like, again, Royal Payne is one of the best players out there that's not really that known. Incredible player. People see it all that you see him all the time in Showdown, especially. The guy knows what he's doing. So you got to look at these things. That's why we do the reviews. That's why we analyze these lineups to find it. You can't say, oh, but it's all Sims. This lineup makes perfect sense on paper. We just talked through it. All these plays were in check. I didn't like Rachaad White. I will say this, not even being results oriented, but one of the tidbits I had this week, I don't know if it made them or not, but I had it in my mix. I can only put so many up there, but was about how even with his volume on the field, it had been in certain situational stuff. And the way he got here, the majority of these points was like 143-yard catch and run touchdown. That was like 12 points or something almost. Like maybe it was more than 43 yards. I thought it was like 12 points on one play. So just keep in mind that's something, sometimes the plays get there. This is the same thing the other way. Both Mixon and Pollard did get their chances yesterday, but when those touchdowns go, they were actually getting good yard per carry. They were both doing well. And then Mixon got the late touchdown. He could have got in more. Burrow, another example. Burrow had 25 points. It felt like he could have had 40. He threw 2 interceptions. Boyd dropped a wide open TD. Baker Mayfield, same thing. Good day. But, Evans dropped another wide open touchdown beyond the one that he got back later on. So, things happen in the sport, uncontrollable. But just to say it, that's something that you want to, just keep in the back of your mind when you're looking at these lineups. So, congrats to Royal Payne. We'll look at some more lineups after. I do want to show off the stack rankings quickly, just because this was talked about yesterday. Again, they're updated from before the slate yesterday, so no changes to them. But a few things here, Nades. I'll let you look at them too. I know you use them every week just to bring up the top. We've said this countless times on here, just breaking it down. If this was the only tool that you used, Burrow had a pretty good day. Murray, Stroud, Dobbs with Hawkinson was the number 4 stack up there. Dak was the quote-unquote best. We always say this. It's probably rude to say, but besides Burrow, Dak was the next kind of real quarterback. Obviously, Kyler Murray coming back from injury. Stroud's been the real deal. Tyler mentioned Dobbs has looked like the real deal just in 2 weeks alone. T-Law, we've been seeing him coming back from that knee, waiting for something more. But Dak has been incredible. Baker showed up. Geno showed up. If you just cut it off here, you had Irwin did well. Boyd did well and could have done better. McBride crushed. Brown crushed again. We talked about that earlier. Hawkinson went off. Kirk had a huge day with the bonus. Lamb, Ferguson, Dak all smashed. Godwin, okay, but it was really Evans in that one that had the big day. Lockett scored. But, just using this to build out some lineups, you could definitely have done so. Did you have any thoughts on this one, Nate? It's just another great week for those stack rankings. That's why I think we're seeing a lot of members posting out these wins every single week that we're putting out there.
Yeah, no, actually, I use these, and I use them in a way that doesn't just say it's not a cookie cutter approach. That's not what this tool is meant to be. Could you go in there and run the Joe Burrow, Trenton Irwin, and Tyler Boyd? Yeah, you could have, and it would have smashed if Tyler Boyd can catch a football. But you still had good games if you grab pieces of it. Joe Burrow grabbed the value, and Trenton Irwin played Jamar Chase, right? When the injury concerns and all that, right? Oh my God, he's a decoy, blah, blah, blah. I know there was a lot of talk in that. He didn't smash by any means, and he wouldn't have probably showed up on many winning lineups because other high-priced receivers like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is right below that Seahawks stack, the next stack right there, Amon-Ra St. Brown shows up. Another wide receiver 1 showing up in a value spot, which tells you something. If he's showing up in a value stack projected rankings like this system at his high price point, right, there's a reason for it, right? He's got a good projection. He's got a good matchup. It's in a good game environment. Same thing, CeeDee Lamb. You can grab the Dalton Schultz, didn't have a great game, but Noah Brown was right there, right? So you can grab pieces from this to round out your teams or grab secondary correlation spots from these stack rankings and then take a look. Okay, scroll down the board, right? See who's on the bottom, right? Ravens down there. Obviously, that's where the defenses and things like that come in, right? The pack
was in the optimal, right? Boom.
Right. Cleveland D. Ravens is on the bottom of the barrel, right? Well, guess who also got a touchdown? Gus Bus, right? He didn't make the optimal build, but he was still reasonably priced. He got in there. If it's not going to be a passing game, well, it's either it could be the Cleveland D, could be Gus the Bus, right? He got another touchdown in there. The Chargers, right? Obviously down the board, that doesn't really pay off, but the Packers way down the board there. Things like that, right? The Steelers, not super high up, right? That's where Najee Harris, things like that. So you can use these stack rankings many different ways. It doesn't just say come in here. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You plug these 3 guys in, you fill it out with some other guys, and you're going to print money. It's how to look at these tools, use these tools, and really understand why some of these guys, especially the wide receiver ones, the high price. Look at CeeDee Lamb, the value number 1, and he's $8,500, and he is one of the highest wide receiver ones on the entire chart. So just using things like that, not being results oriented, right? Obviously, we review these every week, and even when stack rankings don't get there, they've gotten there many more weeks than they haven't. But even on the weeks that they haven't, we still go through this, and you can still play pick plays out of here and see like how you could have used them to get to some of these winning builds. So just another thing that, hey, this is a tool. We're helping you become better players, right? We're not just giving you a core report. We have that, but going up there and saying, oh, if this core doesn't get there, I'm drawn dead this week. We have other tools and projections and stuff to get through it, including these review shows. So these things continue to crush.
This has been on point. I used the other night, my buddy was over at my house asking how the site's going. Like, he's not a big time DFS player, but he dabbles in it. And he was like, hey, I want to get on the site, check it out. I've been watching your guys' free shows lately. I'm playing more. He plays more on FanDuel, and he just he wanted to check it out. He said, like, how would you use this? And I was actually just going through and showing him like everything we just talked about. Like, if you're going this way, you might want to use this guy. I think he was talking about, he ended up using a DAX stack, which he really liked, he said, and he used Mixon and Schultz. And the reason is if he's not going with the DAX, again, this didn't fully work out. Just showing how you can use it is, like he said, the Dak Prescott stack is there. If he's not using the Burrow stack, well, then he might as well go against it and say, then if they're not going to be as good or better than Dak, maybe it ends up being Mixon. And I see Schultz right there, which can line up with it. And he started filling it out like that way. And I was like, oh, good idea. Like that's kind of the way to use this tool. And this is, Kevin, we know it's not you. You've been around a while. We appreciate your support. I'm just saying, when we're looking at stuff saying it's computer generated, this is computer generated. This is our guy Boomer behind the scenes on his computer generating these stats and numbers for you to go and use. The solver, optimizers, things that LineStar, our partners that have, like, that you can go and use. A lot of it's computer generated. If you're only out there building by hand, it's good. Watch these shows. They're all free. Go on and use tools and try and put them together off that stuff. But computer generated is the way of the future. It's the way of the present, really. And so it's only going to get more and more. So that's why it's key to have, like with what our site says, everything you need to have success with DFS. We have partnerships with other sites with Sims, like Run the Sims. The projections are computer-based. They're computer-generated to then create it. So you want to make sure you're getting involved with that stuff. Just want to keep it not just for you, for everybody, so they know. Going back to it real quick, just want to show this. So Hoops Core, yesterday on the site, he had Dak, Mixon, White, Lamb, and Irwin. And you go back here, Dak, Mixon, White, Lamb, Irwin, and then he mixed in Boyd, McBride, so McCaffrey, and Cardinals. Put up 198. That turned 4K into 23K. He had a really close call. He needed overtime. It almost got there. The Seattle-Washington game, I know in this one lineup he had Walker. I think the one in third had Walker and Lockett. And I think the one in fifth had Geno, Walker, and Lockett. So some of the other guys that he was on within his player pool. But I took my shot on this one too, Nades. I built a lineup off of this. You guys can see how we use the content. Again, I had Dak. I had Mixon. And then I had Lamb. And then I kind of went off what he was doing. Instead of Irwin, I went Boyd. Instead of Rashad White, who you guys know I didn't love, I went with the other guy that Hoop said was the guy he loved. We were making fun of him, but I said, I'll do this. I went to Najee. This was okay. This was in the 150 single entry. It put up 203 points. I still got Boyd. I ended up getting Mixon, Boyd, and Dell as like a mini game stack over there. Najee freed it up. The double setup here, I had McBride and Bijan for another secondary, and then I landed on Seattle. I don't think any of those big ones got there besides maybe the Ravens, right? How did they finish? San Francisco got 20. Cleveland got 15. Ravens got 12. Dallas got 8. So again, the expensive Ds didn't really end up getting there. Any thoughts on that, Nades?
Yeah, we've seen this multiple times. It's cost me a lot of money the 1 week, 2 weeks ago or whatever. I paid all the way up for defense and they got me like 1 point or something. But like week after week, we see these, right? These spend up defenses in absolute nut spots and just underwhelm. Not only underwhelm, yeah, they could put up 8 to 9 points, 10 points, right? But at their salary, if a defense down at 2,500 puts up 4 points, right? Well, yeah, you can say, oh, you're losing 6 points, but you're not, because you're gaining almost $2,000 in some instances to upgrade other places in your lineup. $2,000 goes a long way. I mean, so it's just week after week, we see these top end defenses just underwhelm. outside of the Buffalo week, but Buffalo was more mid-price. So anytime these defenses up in the 36, 38, 4K, 4,100, 4,400, things like that, I've just taken my chances at them just not being needed and just spending down in the mid-tier, like 2,500 to 3K range, just because it allows you to do so much more with your roster construction. And that's what you see on these winning lineups, right? Like these winning lineups. I mean, 4 points from the Cardinals defense getting you there is 4 points or 5 points, whatever they score, 3 points, excuse me. It's because what they allow the rest of your lineup to do. So just that's one thing that I've been noticing, and it's burned me quite a few times this week or this year already. That's just I don't know. I don't know if you have thoughts on that or what, but it just seems
Tyler,
like.
did you have anything to add on that one? Like just your thoughts on that? Because everyone talks about it all the time. And this week we did have value that was allowing us, I should say, to get there on these more expensive defenses. But then in general, we saw it wasn't worth it when in the end you needed a guy like Keenan Allen, and you can't spend up to him too if you're also going with the Dallas D in most cases and other stacks that got there.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, the least projectable thing for football is how much a defense is going to score. A lot of the times the defensive touchdowns are fluky and you just can't project that. So leaning into, Cowboys being a big favorite, their projection is high. That's one of the most fragile projections we have when we're, building our lineups. So there's no reason to really dig into having to play, one of these expensive defenses.
And even if you were up there, like we talked a little bit about it, neither worked out. I'm just saying, I still looked at it like what you just said. The two biggest takeaways on the Dallas side of it was that, first of all, it's a blowout, so that has to mean Tony Pollard. Nade's talked about it. I hammered on that on the show yesterday. I was like, a blowout doesn't happen without points. CD and Dak have been the key way they've been getting their points. So I played Pollard too. I mixed him into the builds to try and get them all in. It didn't work out for him. He got opportunities. It wasn't him that got the job done. The second side of that was the defense side of things. It was like, what? It could just be run the whole game, even when they get there or when they score. Everyone say, well, eventually the Giants will have to throw. Not really. Like if they're getting blown out like this, a lot of times teams just kill the clock out, man. Like it's not like they quit. But when you're down like that score, you saw it at the end, even they were still running Barkley. They were still doing little short throws to guys like Wanderlei Robinson and stuff like that. They're not like throwing for the end zone every 5 seconds. When the game's over for them like that, they kind of just get their way through it. Versus there was spots with Seattle where they were going up against Howell, who throws the ball a million times a game. So like that was real opportunity there in Seattle. Tough place to play at. Things like, again, this did not work out. Just saying, seeing it from that angle, even though to Tyler's point, which is 100% correct, it's so hard to project these things. That's why you kind of like our guy Joe says, defense for me is whatever fits my build because it's so random. Same thing in MME. Oftentimes I'm just putting a cap, 20%, 25%, whatever it might be, and then just let anything trickle in that does. But what I try and do is get some ideas of where there might be actual opportunities and look for angles along those lines, things like that. But sometimes people don't realize it's not even the opportunities trying to know ball and what the game is and stuff. Oh, but I know this guy's going to throw 3 picks. You don't know anything. That's why it's like, but what you can know is the DFS field. We know that if you're not playing Lamar Jackson, it makes sense that you could play the Cleveland D. We'll get to it here in a second, but the short gamer TV, the Sims Master, as our guy Kevin was calling him. But if you're not playing any Cincinnati guys, it doesn't hurt to play some Houston defense in there at 1% owned. Did it break the slate? No, but it was 2,700 and it got you as many points as Dallas did at massive ownership and $4,400. So, but the main point was we knew the field was playing Mixon very heavy, Burrow, Chase, Irwin, Boyd, all those things. That's how people end up on this. People wonder how the hell did they get to Houston and Singletary? Well, they flipped the build. Everybody else was playing Mixon and an expensive defense. He not only gets to flip the build, but he gets a bunch of money back in return. It's like he's already playing against what would crush the field if Singletary beats Mixon, and if Houston does enough of these expensive Ds, he's already way ahead. But also there's a bonus waiting for him. He gets the the Christmas vacation. The bonus. My bonus is here. The bonus is all the money he has left over to spend. Look how much cheaper Singletary is than Mixon. Look how much cheaper the Houston D is than Dallas. Oh, wait. Now you can fit in CD Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown and pay up for Hawkinson at tight end amongst others. So it's like that's where the difference lies and where everything comes in that you have to think about we don't know what's going to actually happen in the games. We talk about it, we get ideas, but that's why I think like trying to do how we talk through our shows is more about if this, then that. People make fun of that all the time, but if this, then that means we're waiting to see. So if Mixon doesn't get there, could it be Singletary on the other side with no Dameon Pierce and no Woods and a potential to be down in the game and some flop lag from last week? If you're doing that, could you use the Houston D to leverage everybody having at least what feels like everybody has at least one Bengal, if not more, in their lineup? So Tyler, that's one of the things I always talk about. I know you do a lot of breakdown analysis where you'll review. That's what it usually is, right? People think someone's crazy to have Singletary in Houston, but they weren't going the other way anyway. Why wouldn't you embrace it and double leverage it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that people get so, like Pollard, essentially, like the Cowboys can only go through the run because it's a big team total is just crazy. There's so many different ways a team can attack, and we have no idea how the coach is going to game plan something. Yes, it might be more logical that Tony Pollard is the one, but when the wave breaks down, the game breaks down, the coach may not decide to go with the running back, maybe put the ball in Dak's hands, and that's where he sees, more benefit for his team. And that's how it broke down this week, and that's how it broke down with Singletary.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing too, Nades, is like, again, here's the other angle of it. I'm going to tie in two things, actually, Nades, but you go, okay, you're going Dak, CD, Ferguson. I did this a lot, and I didn't think of this. This is a really sharp way to do it. But in a lot of lineups where I was going with Dak, I just talked about my buddy saying that's what he did, using our stack rankings. He said, well, if I'm not going to go with Joe Burrow and the number one stack ranking on your site, and I'm going to use one of the next best, which is Dak, CD, and Ferguson, I was plugging in Mixon. So was he. Like, we're thinking, okay, well, let's use the running game then. It's got to be them that scores the points. But what if it's not? What if it's the other side? And just clicking it back, Nades, we love stuff like this. So you look at it. If you say it's not going to be this one, and the Texans are right here behind them, and you're going with, as the short gamer TV used, Dak, CD, and Ferguson. He had Hawkinson in there. He had Noah Brown. But if you're not using this, it doesn't mean you have to use Mixon. He used not only Noah Brown, but then he said, I'm going to use Singletary because I've already got my quarterback, so I can't use Stroud. Maybe it's him instead. And if I'm not playing the stack, why don't I just play the defense against them? And then you go back to the lineup again, and it's right here. And he had Rachaad White, Amon-Ra as the other two to fill it out. Well, where's our guy at here? Baker Mayfield's down below the Dak stack, so Rachaad White, plug him in, sure. And then you mentioned it, Amon-Ra, right there. So just looking at it, Nades, it is interesting that, you could think about it. Again, I think he literally stayed in here, didn't he? Pretty sure
he did.
He's all within here. Mm-hmm. Again, it's just one of those things. You can go back and look, and it's easier to find after. I understand that. But talk to me, Nades. I mean, anything else you saw with this one, it's just really fun to go back and look at this stuff and see the angles and approaches that people are taking. But I think the key was a lot of people, once they got the leverage on Pollard, they thought it was good to go plug in Mixon to get a piece of that other game. So a lot of people had Mixon and Noah Brown and then got different elsewhere, cheap tight end with McBride, whatever. That's a good lineup, but this one ended up being a great lineup to the tune of $1 million in the 555.
Yeah, no, excellent build overall, really well thought out, and just goes back to the leverage piece, right? Like flipping the game script. How come? I mean, if you're not on the Cincinnati side, maybe it's the Texans who have looked amazing, right? CJ Stroud, all these jokes on Twitter and everything. CJ Stroud's in the MVP conversation, right? Blah blah blah. Why can't Houston keep that game close or have them have the game script go their way, right? Where it's Singletary, it's Noah Brown, who's underpriced for his environment and the role that he's in with the targets, everything that he's getting, with the injuries there. And then the Houston D is just the cheap D that goes against the chalk. Mixon's going to be massively owned. I mean, I think in the 555, he was what? Like, I mean, I know in the Thunderdome and stuff like that, he was up in like 60%. He had to be like almost 40% in the 555, I'd have to assume. I'm just trying to pull it up right now. I know he was the chalkiest running back by far.
38%. 38%.
Yeah, 38. 0.3%. My freaking cat, get down. But yeah, no, I mean, overall, amazing build. And people can say all they want about sim generated lineups. You still need to. He had one lineup in this contest, so this is probably a hand-built lineup or like a computer hand-built lineup, right? Where he's going through and computer hand building, like you talk about all the time, right, Tambo? You still need the optimizer, and whatever you're using, We Partner with Solver, is only as good as the inputs that you put into it, right? And the way you set your things up. And that's, I mean, people could say all they want about the Sims. You can't just go in there and buy a Sims package for whatever optimizer partner you partner with, whether it's a Solver, whether it's anyone else in the industry, and just go in there, click the button and say, oh, I'm going to use these Sims and I'm automatically going to win. That's not how it goes. There's a lot of game theory and leverage and thought process, like we talked about on the show already, that goes into crafting a player pool and putting the right inputs into your optimizer for it to then spit out your teams and build your teams for you, basically, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's a good lineup. Like, again, you want to know what you're going up against. And that was funny because I was just in it here. I'll go to the leaderboard down to where I was. I think it was Cuba Sugar, who had a good day. That's where I found the lineup. I think it was in like 90-something. Let me see here. This one. And this is funny because it's just what we just talked about, right? Like, this is what I think most people were doing, and I think it's perfectly fine. It was solid. It was a little bit higher owned than the other stuff, but when you go Dak with CeeDee Lamb, trying to get pieces of the Cincinnati-Houston game, but with the Cincy side being almost 50% ownership combined just on the two pieces used here. Still a very sharp build. You end up getting CMC. You use the double tight end to your advantage, and you land on a defense that not as many were on that was in a pretty good spot against Jared Goff. I'm fine with the build. It's not the result of it. It's just saying what short game or TV ended up on was similar pieces with the Lamb, Ferguson, Dak, but then high leverage going no Cincy and triple Houston, where most people had 2 to 3 Bengals. They went with 2 to 3 Texans. I really like that spot. Tyler, did you have anything else to add on this or anything else you see with it different?
No, I mean, it's a good lineup. Ownership's right. And going Houston D just got them so different compared to everybody else at 1% owned in, major leverage versus all that Cincy chalk.
Yeah. And I think realistically, you could have ended up wherever here. Like, I don't remember the exact finishes, but I think what was popular here was like Jacksonville and Arizona. Like, Arizona would have fit this build all the same. I can't remember what they scored, but Arizona would have left, what was it, 8?
They got 3 points.
Okay, so he can give up 5 and he still wins, right? 237.96. He still ships it, and no Bijan Robinson. He could have went off the full leverage and just went with that, not spent all the money, left $200. But just to show it, like, again, there's other ways to do it. What did the Jacksonville Jaguars score for defense? Do you have it?
1 point.
So 1 drops him 7. It would have been still, right? He would have been 235.96. It would have been a nail biter, but he still would have been able to drop 7 points here and be okay. And that would have been okay. I'm not playing CMC, and I like the Jags D. It's fine. But maybe a little weather we talked about on the shows, things like that. So I don't know. I think in general, just one of those things you got to think about. Always look. Our guy Title always says there's levels to this shit. Like, that's kind of what you're seeing here. It was a lot of people got to the Dak stack in some way, shape, or form, or pieces of it, but not with 5, with 13, with 8, not as much as you would think. And then how many people ran it back with just Houston guys and not a single Cincy one? That's how you can look at these slates and just get a little bit different.
Another thing I want to bring up too with the Houston side is it doesn't matter what team these players play for, when they're alphas or the opportunities that they're in are underpriced. I mean, if you put a starting running back number 1 on a different team at 4,700, he'd be massive chalk, right? Well, that's what you're getting with Devin Singletary. You put a guy like Noah Brown on another team, right, on the Chiefs or something like that, he's going to be 40-50% owned at his price point in the matchup. But he's not, because he's on the Houston offense where everybody thinks the Bengals are going to go in and blow the doors off this team, right? So, like, that's another thing you have to consider. And Tambo, you and I were 70K richer from it last season, right? And the same kind of thing where we got quarterback, tight end, and running back from a team, the same exact Houston team, that were underpriced for their roles and their opportunities that they were going to be granted in the game. So that's another thing to keep in mind too. Sometimes people look too far into, oh, I don't like this offense, or I have a personal bias against this offense, when really this offense has looked good all season long, led by CJ Stroud. And their roles for their price points were significantly underpriced for the nature of the slate.
Yeah, and you mentioned it last year. That was actually a lineup that we chopped in Showdown. We both ended up on the same build. It was actually Goddard in the captain with it was with Hurts and Gainwell. We used the backup running back because of the potential for blowout down the stretch. But on the other side, we had the backup quarterback for Houston with
Davis Mills, Dameon Pierce, and
CJ Moore or CJ
Chris Moore or something.
Chris Moore.
Yeah.
So at the time, he was literally their wide receiver one that game, and Pierce was their running back one. So again, like you were talking about, that's their wide receiver one and running back one and their starting quarterback. It's not that crazy, but everyone was playing 5-1 stacks. This is not a showdown show, but it's just a show, again, to Nade's point. That was one of the takeaways I had for sure from yesterday. The ownership delta between Mixon, who's always got the volume and never came through. And I liked him just as much as the rest. You're waiting for that opportunity to pop. It still didn't happen. By the way, guys, Pollard plays against, speaking to someone like that, plays against Carolina this week. So good luck figuring that one out. It should be another spot that he smashes, but we'll see what the ownership trends are like. But just to say it, the Dameon Pierce was out. Nico Collins was out. Singletary was popular last week for this reason. The price didn't even change. Like it was still super cheap. Opposite side of Mixon, there was a huge opportunity to leverage the field in that spot. And I myself did not do it enough either. So it's not, it's just something to learn from. That's what this is all about. Trying to get better, see what other people did, think how you could have got to it, and then be able to remember that for next time. I'll tell you what, too, the Hawkinson piece, another one. I should know better. Like people talk about, I know better. Tyler, we've been doing this a long time too. Nade's the same. Like how many times you get the report like that and then watch the guy, the key situations end up being, we've seen it with Kittle a couple times. Oh, Kittle will only be out there for the key situations. This Hawkins thing was nuts. I never seen nothing like that, like getting 10 catches for that. Yeah. By the way, he took like 3 of them that he looked like he was dead from, had to like pick himself up off the field, got smoked. But we've seen it where Kittle get the key situations end up being the end zone shots, and he ends up with 2 touchdowns on 3 throws or something like it. It's just something that, you always got to think about it. You don't have to shy away. I get it's scary, but man, I felt like I got played a little bit on that one yesterday. Just something to keep in the back of the mind. Someone said too, like the chalk all got there, like just looking at it, Dak 8%, Herbert 2%, Howell 5%. By the way, Howell just keeps going off. This guy keeps chucking it and making 24 points plus for you. Gino was up there, sure, but Dobbs, Stroud on the $100 more than Burrow at 10% less owned and beat him. Another note to take away: opposite sides, often the thing. Running back, Brian, like these ones are really hard to predict. Jahmyr Gibbs, even Montgomery got there. Gibson was okay. Jalen Warren actually beat our guy Harrod, Najee, Hoops guy, as much as we talked about it, but Singletary, 10%, 11%. So he's a little sharper in the higher dollar field. More people had hopped onto him. But yeah, just not a lot of the chalk at running back got there. Wide receiver, Amon-Ra did get up there in the higher stakes stuff and was for good reason. We knew he had a good matchup. But Keenan Allen on the opposite side for $500 more at 20% less got you 10 more points on top of that. And if you could have got both in somehow, that would have been nice. The double Dallas side looks good. Evans, Noah Brown, like I said, just made sense. Didn't matter to me as much. He was still 16% though. The decoy, Jamar Chase, didn't end up working out because these guys crushed him at 83, 88, and 85, but he was still in there to play. Stand by that take. Short week with this game coming up against Baltimore. I said if he's going to be out there, I think he's fine. He sat himself down last year. Tight end just got destroyed besides McBride. Like you look, Hawkinson 6.8 for Kittle, 5 for Ferguson, and Njoku point. I mean, no one really did anything after those guys, but just to note there. And then defense, as always, Dallas 5th highest at 8, but you paid for it. Everybody else was cheaper. And then San Francisco almost unowned at that. Is there anything else with exposures or anything else you want to talk about, Tyler, that you saw here on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a couple weeks ago too. Like you don't have to worry about the chalk that much if you're going with a low owned stack. Dak, Cooks, CD, all of that together was pretty low owned. CD was up there a little bit as far as ownership wise, but Dak, Cooks, pretty much, unowned. And that alone is just making you so different that you don't have to worry about the chalk that much. You can play the best plays and you'll be fine if that chalk hits that's low owned.
Yeah, and if you're not going to play it, you nailed it there. If you're not going to play like the winning lineup we just saw, if you're not playing Irwin, Boyd, Chase, and you're not playing Mixon, the highest owned running back, and you're not playing Pollard or the Cowboys D, as we saw, or any of that, you can really do whatever you want. Like everyone always worries about the percentage owned in a vacuum. They're like, oh, but he's 20% owned. Can't play that guy. That's terrible. Why? Like, how do you know? You have no idea, and then you still have to put it all together and make it make sense. When you're playing none of those 4 high-owned guys on Cincinnati and leveraging them on the other side, it wouldn't even have mattered what else was in his lineup. He's not playing Bijan. He's not playing Pollard. He's not playing the top 3 owned running backs. He's not playing the top 3 owned quarterbacks. He's playing none of or I think he didn't have Amon-Ra either. Actually, he had Allen. So you're not playing Hopkins, Irwin, Marquise Brown, Dell, Boyd, Chase. He had Noah Brown in there, just a note of one guy. And then you got a little bit extra in there. That's fine. But for the most part, man, like, again, nobody on, not even on one of the top 10 defenses. So I don't know. Nades, any final thoughts from you, man? I think we did a good job breaking it all down. Congrats to those 2 winners. Anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I think we got a nice slate here tonight. I'm excited to talk about it. I think you and I think a lot alike. I think we're going to see a lot of 5-1 Buffalo smash builds or 4-2 Buffalo smash builds. So it's going to be an interesting night here. If obviously your week 10 didn't go as planned yet, we still got money to be made tonight. And we're going to have you covered. That show will be over on the Mayo Media Network, yourself, Hoop, and Title. We'll break that down. We got an NBA show right here on this same channel this afternoon with myself and Hamlish for the 4-gamer tonight. But lots more money to be made. It's week 10, but hey, there's still 8 more weeks plus the playoffs left to go. So we're over the halfway point. Still a lot of money to be made.
For sure. Yeah, we'll be back with more. Tyler, talk to people a little bit more about LineStar. We mentioned earlier, you guys can go to linestarapp.com, use the promo code SHIPIT, but you guys got a lot of other stuff going on as well beyond just the perfect lineup. Talk to the people a little bit more about what you guys have to offer over there, and then I'll get us out of here.
Yeah, I mean, we're an all-encompassing site. We have projections. We have the optimizer. You guys use our ownership. And then we also have the Props AI tool, which has been great. We went 5-0 on our underdog show this week with picks straight from Props AI. And, you know, it's been really good. You can look at our projections, consensus projections, and really kind of figure out your play and just see all the stats behind it to figure it out. So thanks for having me, guys. It was fun once again, and glad to show everybody LineStar.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. As always these fun shows to do with you, and you can hop on here every second week with us. Again, want to remind you guys, if you want to get in the draw for $100 up to $5,000, depending on how I do at King of the Beach, giving away 10% of my winnings, the first way to get in is you must subscribe to the Ship It Nation YouTube station. So go over there, go on your YouTube app right now, pause this, whatever you got to do, go to the YouTube app, type in Ship It, click subscribe, go to videos right here. It's myself and D-Dry. It says Ship It Nation member wins $1 million playing NFL DFS, which he did, and used our resources as well as others. You can go in and get the whole interview. You can watch it in less than 15 minutes if you throw it on 2X and leave a comment there. That's where we're going to be drawing the random winner for. So it's already $100, can be up to as high as $5,000. Somebody will win it. It will be posted out. It is real money. Appreciate all you guys for watching. Thank you so much. We'll be back this afternoon on the Mayo Media Network at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hoop, Title, and myself to break down this Monday Night Football game with Denver at the Bills. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Nades, for Tyler from LineStar, I appreciate you joining us. And for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it!